The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sleepy town of Pineville, Oregon. Small shops lined Main Street, their facades weathered but warm, each a testament to decades of history and quiet resilience. Sam Carter, a private investigator known for his integrity and tenacity, was heading back to his modest office after a long day spent on a minor fraud case. Life in Pineville didn't often get exciting, but Sam had learned to appreciate the slower pace after leaving the chaotic world of law enforcement behind. He rounded a corner, lost in thought, when a quiet, tentative voice brought him back to the present. "Mister," Sam stopped and looked down. Standing before him was a young girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a worn dress and clutching an equally tattered stuffed bear. Her tangled hair fell around her face, but he could see her wide, haunted eyes peering up at him. She looked out of place, as though she had wandered straight out of a nightmare and stumbled onto the sunlit streets of Pineville. "Yes," Sam replied gently, instinctively softening his tone. The girl took a hesitant step forward, her gaze darting around as if she were expecting someone or something to appear and snatch her away. Her voice was barely a whisper, and yet each word she spoke cut through the quiet afternoon air with chilling clarity. "Help me!" Sam's eyes narrowed slightly, and his instincts kicked in. "Are you lost?" he asked, glancing around, half expecting to see a frantic parent searching for her. But no one seemed to notice the girl. She was alone, and every ounce of her small frame radiated fear. "My name is Lily," she said, clutching the bear tighter. "They're coming for me." The weight of her words was enough to send a chill down Sam's spine. He glanced around once more, then crouched down to her level, trying to seem as non-threatening as possible. "Who's coming for you, Lily?" Instead of answering, she took another step forward and whispered 2 words into his ear. Sam's expression shifted instantly from concern to shock, and without another word, he pulled his phone from his pocket, dialing a familiar number. "Hey, it's Carter," he said, his voice tense. "I need a favor." There was a pause on the other end of the line as his old contact, a detective he had worked with before leaving the force, processed the unusual request. "What's going on, Sam?" "Can't explain right now, but I need someone to look up recent cases involving missing kids in the area, especially anything with unusual circumstances." He shot a quick glance at Lily, who stood there watching him intently, as if measuring his response. "Are you in trouble?" the voice on the other end asked, laced with suspicion. Sam hesitated. "Maybe," he admitted, "but it's a kid, and she's scared. Just do this for me." Hanging up, Sam turned his full attention back to Lily, who was standing quietly, as if waiting to see what he would do next. "All right, kid," he said, softening his tone. "I'm Sam. You can stay with me for now, and I'll make sure no one gets to you." For a brief moment, a flicker of relief crossed her face, and she let out a small breath she seemed to have been holding. Sam wasn't sure what he had gotten himself into, but something about Lily told him she wasn't just any runaway. There was a heaviness in her gaze, a maturity far beyond her years, and he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility toward her. Taking her by the hand, he led her down the quiet streets toward his office, determined to keep her safe, and to uncover the truth about this mysterious, frightened girl named Lily. Inside Sam's office, the soft hum of the overhead fan mingled with the muffled sounds of the town outside. Sam's workspace was modest, filled with stacks of case files, a sturdy oak desk, and a small couch he occasionally used for catnaps between cases. He settled Lily on the couch, offering her a glass of water, which she accepted with trembling hands. She sat quietly, holding the glass as if afraid to take a sip, her eyes darting around the room, absorbing every detail with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Sam could sense the layers of unease blanketing her, the weight of whatever had led her to seek out a stranger for help. "You're safe here," he assured her, his voice gentle but steady. "No one's coming for you right now. You can take your time." Lily glanced at him, her eyes dark and wary, yet there was a glimmer of trust beginning to form. After a long pause, she finally took a sip of water, and her shoulders eased just a fraction. Sam watched her carefully, waiting, knowing from experience that rushing someone in her state wouldn't lead to anything good. After a few minutes, she looked up at him and began to speak, her voice soft and hesitant, as if the words themselves were fragile. "There was a place," she said, her gaze dropping to her hands. "A big house, with lots of rooms. They kept us there." Sam's expression didn't change, but internally he felt a surge of anger and protectiveness. He didn't know who they were yet, but he was certain that they'd left an indelible mark on this little girl's life. He knew better than to push her for more details. She would open up in her own time. "Do you remember where this house was?" he asked gently. Lily shook her head slowly, her fingers tightening around the edge of the couch cushion. "It was dark. There weren't any windows in my room. I only heard people sometimes, and when they talked, it sounded far away." Sam could feel the dread settling in his stomach. He'd dealt with missing persons and trafficking cases before, but there was something about this young girl's hollow expression and her haunted words that hit him differently. It was as if the trauma she'd endured had aged her, leaving her with a demeanor far beyond her years. "Did you ever see who took you?" Sam asked, choosing his words carefully. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, and then added in a small voice, "I remember their voices sometimes, but I don't remember their faces. I don't think they wanted us to remember." Sam took a deep breath, suppressing the anger that simmered just below the surface. Whoever had put Lily through this had done so with meticulous, cold-hearted planning. This wasn't a simple kidnapping. It was part of something larger, something calculated. He needed more information, but he also knew it wouldn't come easily. Reaching over, he placed a hand on her shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "You don't have to say anything more right now, Lily, but whenever you're ready, I'll be here." The soft chime of the bell above the door broke the moment as Sam's assistant, Mia, entered, her bright, inquisitive gaze landing immediately on the small figure seated on the couch. Mia was sharp, eccentric, and had a knack for finding things that others missed, a trait that had proven invaluable in Sam's line of work. She raised an eyebrow at Sam, her gaze flicking between him and Lily. "So, who's our guest?" she asked, her tone light but tinged with curiosity. "This is Lily," Sam replied. "She's in a bit of trouble. I'll fill you in later." Mia nodded, taking the hint. She placed a file on Sam's desk, then looked at Lily with a gentle smile. "Hi, Lily. I'm Mia. You're in good hands with Sam here. He's one of the best." Her words were warm, intended to comfort, and Lily seemed to relax slightly under Mia's friendly gaze. Over the next hour, Sam did his best to make Lily feel safe. He found an extra blanket for her, offered her a warm meal, and, after a bit of coaxing, got her to talk about less painful memories. Simple things like her favorite books and how she missed playing outside. The darkness that hovered around her seemed to lift a little with each passing minute. As dusk settled over Pineville, Sam's thoughts kept returning to the fragmented clues Lily had shared. A large house, dark rooms, distant voices. It wasn't much, but he knew it was enough to begin digging. He would call in favors from his old contacts, search for any reports or complaints that matched her description. There was a part of him that couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a random incident, that whatever Lily had escaped from was still out there, looming in the shadows. He glanced over at her as she drifted off to sleep on the couch, clutching her stuffed bear close. Despite the hardships she'd endured, there was a resilience in her, a strength that seemed to anchor her in a way that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. He had no doubt she'd gone through things no child should ever have to face, and he was determined to get to the bottom of it, no matter what it took. As he pulled a blanket over her, he whispered quietly, almost as a vow, "You're safe now, Lily. I won't let anyone hurt you again." The promise lingered in the quiet room, settling into the space between them. Sam knew he'd just taken on a responsibility far beyond any case he'd handled before. He had no idea where this journey would lead, but one thing was certain. He would protect Lily with everything he had. The next morning, Sam woke early, his mind already racing with plans and possibilities. He hadn't slept much, his thoughts occupied with Lily's fragmented descriptions of the dark house and her terror-stricken whispers from the night before. As he poured a strong cup of coffee, he mentally prepared for the day ahead. Whatever Lily had endured, it was his job now to get to the bottom of it. Lily was still fast asleep on the couch, her stuffed bear tucked under her arm. She looked peaceful, almost fragile in the dim morning light, but Sam knew that inside her was a strength built from survival. He left a note on the desk for her, explaining that he'd be in the next room with Mia and to come find him when she woke up. In his office, Mia was already waiting, seated cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a chaotic array of files and open laptops. She had a knack for digging through information, and today, her focus was razor sharp. "So," she began, glancing up at Sam as he entered, "we've got a missing kid, potentially connected to a trafficking ring, and no official record of her anywhere." Her eyes sparkled with a hint of excitement, and Sam knew she was already several steps ahead in her investigation. "Pretty much," Sam replied, taking a sip of his coffee, "but we've got a few things to go on." She mentioned a big house with dark rooms, voices she could hear but not see. And Mia, the look in her eyes when she talked about it, she's seen things no kid should ever have to see. Mia nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Poor kid," she murmured. "I've already started digging through recent police reports and missing persons cases, but nothing's come up that matches her exact description. She could be from out of state, or—" She trailed off, glancing at Sam with a serious look. "Or it's the kind of operation that doesn't leave a paper trail," Sam finished grimly. He was no stranger to cases where organized criminals operated in the shadows, hiding their activities so deeply that even law enforcement struggled to trace them. "Exactly. But," Mia continued, tapping her fingers thoughtfully on the floor, "if it's a trafficking operation, they would need places to keep the kids. Abandoned buildings, remote properties, those could be worth checking out." Sam nodded. "Start with any old warehouses or large estates that have been left vacant, especially anything on the outskirts of town, near the railway." Lily might not remember the exact location, but she mentioned hearing distant sounds. It's a stretch, but it's all we have right now. As they worked, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover something much bigger than he'd anticipated. The Pineville Police Department might not have the resources for this kind of investigation, but Sam knew people, good people, from his days on the force. People who would understand the gravity of what he was dealing with and might be willing to help. He reached for his phone and made a call to his old friend, Detective Harris. "Carter," came the familiar gruff voice on the other end. "Didn't think I'd be hearing from you so soon after that last case." Sam chuckled dryly, but his tone quickly grew serious. "I need a favor, Harris. I've got a kid here. Says she was held in some kind of dark house. No windows, lots of rooms. She escaped, but it sounds like she's not the only one they had there." There was a pause on the other end as Harris digested this information. "You're talking trafficking?" "That's my guess," Sam replied. "I know it's outside my usual scope, but this kid needs help, Harris. I don't think she's lying." Another silence, then a resigned sigh from Harris. "All right, send me what you've got, and I'll see if there's anything on our end that matches. But, Sam, if you're right about this, it could be a hell of a mess." "Thanks, Harris. I owe you one," Sam said, ending the call. He felt a pang of relief, knowing Harris would keep his ears open for anything that might connect to Lily's case. It was a long shot, but it was something. As the morning stretched on, Sam and Mia continued combing through records, old files, and maps of the surrounding areas, hoping for even the slightest lead. Finally, Mia perked up, pointing to an old property listing on her laptop screen. "Look at this," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "There's an abandoned estate just outside of town, a big place, almost mansion-sized. Used to belong to some old family, but it's been left vacant for years. It's near the railway, too." Sam leaned over to examine the screen, his pulse quickening. The description of the property fit with what little Lily had told him, and it was close enough that someone could feasibly transport kids there without drawing too much attention. "Good work, Mia," he said, impressed. "That's a start." Mia gave him a small grin. "Glad to help. Should we check it out?" Sam considered it, glancing toward the room where Lily was still resting. "Not yet. First, let's make sure she's up for it. We don't want to push her too fast." Just then, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily and looking around the room with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Hey, Lily," Sam greeted her with a warm smile. "How are you feeling?" She shrugged, offering a small, hesitant smile in return. "Okay, I guess." Sam gestured to a chair beside him, and she sat down, clutching her bear tightly. "We were just talking about that place you mentioned, the big house with all the rooms. Do you think you'd be able to tell us anything more about it?" Lily hesitated, looking down at her hands. "It was always dark in my room," she said quietly, "but sometimes I could hear trains. They would come by in the night." Sam and Mia exchanged a glance. The abandoned estate near the railway line was starting to seem more and more like the place they were looking for. "You're doing great, Lily," Sam said, his voice gentle. "We think we might know where it is, but we won't go there unless you're ready. I want you to know you're safe now, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to." Lily looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. After a long pause, she nodded. "I want to help," she whispered. "If it means stopping them, I want to help." Sam felt a surge of admiration for her bravery, and he knew that this was only the beginning of a long and dangerous journey. But with Lily's courage and Mia's expertise, he was more determined than ever to see this through. As they prepared to leave, Sam felt a mixture of dread and resolve. He didn't know what they would find at the abandoned estate, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever was waiting for them, he would protect Lily with everything he had. The drive to the outskirts of Pineville was quiet, the air filled with an unspoken tension. Sam kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching the empty road behind them, feeling an unease he couldn't quite shake. Mia sat beside him, her eyes focused and alert, while Lily was in the back seat, clutching her stuffed bear tightly, her small fingers gripping the worn fabric like it was her lifeline. As they neared the edge of town, the scenery changed. The neatly kept streets and small houses faded, replaced by stretches of open fields, towering pine trees, and old industrial buildings, many of which had been abandoned for years. The abandoned estate they were heading to was a relic of another time, once a grand house that had fallen into disrepair and neglect. "Are you sure you're okay with this, Lily?" Sam asked, glancing at her in the mirror. Lily nodded, though her face was pale, her gaze fixed on the landscape outside. "I'm okay," she whispered. I just want this to be over." Sam nodded, feeling a surge of protectiveness toward her. He knew they were stepping into dangerous territory, but if it meant getting answers, he was willing to take the risk. As they pulled up to the property, Sam noticed that the main gate was hanging off its hinges, a sign of years of neglect. The driveway was overgrown with weeds, and the house loomed in the distance, its windows dark and broken, giving it a foreboding, almost haunted appearance. The place looked deserted, but Sam knew better than to let his guard down. "Stay close to me," he told Lily as they stepped out of the car. Mia was already moving ahead, her eyes scanning the area, her phone in hand in case they needed to call for help. They walked slowly toward the house, and with each step, Lily's posture grew tenser. Sam could sense her fear, but he was also aware of her determination. She was stronger than she looked, and he felt a surge of admiration for her bravery. They approached the front door, which was slightly ajar, creaking ominously as it swayed in the wind. Sam pushed it open slowly, peering inside. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the stale air thick with dust, and the faint, lingering scent of mildew. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet as they stepped inside, their footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. "This place gives me the creeps," Mia muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Sam nodded in agreement. "Let's make this quick. We're looking for any signs that this place was used recently. Clothing, food, anything out of place." They split up, with Mia heading toward the kitchen area, while Sam and Lily walked down a long hallway lined with closed doors. Each door led to a small, dark room, some with tattered furniture, others completely empty. There was a strange, unsettling silence in the air, as though the walls themselves held secrets they weren't willing to share. As they moved down the hallway, Sam noticed a faint mark on one of the doors, a symbol scratched into the wood. It was crude but unmistakable, a circular emblem with an X through it. He felt a chill run down his spine. It looked like some kind of marker, possibly used to designate certain rooms. "Lily," he said softly, pointing to the symbol. "Do you recognize this?" She looked at it, her eyes widening in fear. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. That's the symbol. The one they put on the doors. It means it's where they keep people." Sam's jaw tightened. This was it. They were on the right track. All right, stay close to me, he told her, his voice firm but reassuring. They continued down the hallway, every nerve on edge. Each room they passed seemed to hold echoes of the past, of fear and captivity. Sam could feel Lily's anxiety growing, but she held onto his hand tightly, her grip firm and steady. Just then, a noise from outside broke the silence, a low, rumbling sound, like the engine of a vehicle. Sam and Mia exchanged a glance, their expressions tense. Someone else was here. "Get down!" Sam whispered urgently, pulling Lily close and guiding her into one of the empty rooms. Mia ducked behind a nearby wall, her eyes sharp and alert. They listened, holding their breath as the sound grew louder, then faded, as though whoever it was had parked just outside. Sam felt his heart pounding in his chest. Whoever these people were, they were looking for Lily. He could sense it, a primal intuition that sent a surge of protectiveness through him. A few moments later, he heard footsteps crunching on the gravel outside, slow and deliberate. He motioned for Mia to stay quiet, his hand instinctively reaching for the small pocket knife he always kept on him, a poor weapon in the face of real danger, but better than nothing. The footsteps stopped just outside the door, and Sam could see a shadow cast across the floorboards. He held his breath, every muscle tensed as he waited, hoping that whoever it was would leave. After a long, tense moment, the footsteps moved on, and Sam heard the vehicle start up and drive away. He let out a slow, shaky breath, feeling the tension in the room dissipate slightly. "They're looking for her," Mia whispered, her expression grim. "They know she's not gone." Sam nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We need to get out of here, now." He took Lily's hand and led her quickly back down the hallway, with Mia close behind. They exited the house and hurried to the car, every nerve in Sam's body still on edge. He could feel Lily's hand trembling in his, but she didn't complain, didn't falter. She was stronger than she realized, and he knew that strength would be crucial in the days to come. As they pulled away from the property, Sam glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights following them. But the road was empty, and the town lay ahead, quiet and unassuming, as though nothing unusual had happened. Back at the office, Sam took a deep breath, trying to shake off the lingering sense of dread. They were up against something much larger than he had anticipated, but he was more determined than ever to protect Lily and uncover the truth. "This isn't over," he told Mia, his voice low and resolute. "They know she's out here, and they're not going to stop until they find her." Mia nodded, her expression serious. "So, what's our next move?" Sam glanced at Lily, who was curled up on the couch, exhausted but safe, for now. "We keep digging," he replied. "We find out who's behind this, and we make sure they never hurt anyone else again." Back at the office, the tension in the air was thick. Sam paced around his desk, his mind racing. They had just barely avoided being discovered, and he knew the people searching for Lily wouldn't give up easily. He needed backup, someone with experience in tackling this kind of organized crime. Mia was typing furiously on her laptop, pulling up every record she could find on trafficking cases in the region. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that they were dealing with a sophisticated network, one that operated just outside the reach of local authorities. As he mulled over his options, his phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. He checked the screen and saw a familiar name, Laura Kingston. Laura had been a seasoned FBI agent before she'd left the bureau a couple of years ago. The two had worked together on several cases in the past, and Sam respected her sharp instincts and unyielding determination. She had left the agency under circumstances he hadn't pried into, but he knew she wouldn't have done so lightly. "Laura," he greeted her, his voice a mix of relief and curiosity. "It's been a while." "It has," Laura replied, her tone professional but warm. "I heard you're dealing with something serious. You want to fill me in?" Sam quickly summarized the situation, explaining how Lily had found him, the details she'd shared about the dark house, and the recent close call at the abandoned estate. Laura listened intently, her silence conveying the weight of the information. When he finished, she paused briefly before responding. "Sam, this isn't just a local problem. If it's what I think it is, we're dealing with a well-organized ring. I've encountered similar setups before, and trust me, they're ruthless. They have connections, money, and ways to cover their tracks." Sam's jaw tightened. "That's what I was afraid of. But this kid, Laura, she's been through hell. I can't just sit back and let them get away with it. I get it, Laura said, her tone softening. You know I'd never turn my back on a case like this. I'm in. But we'll need to be smart about this. If we go in guns blazing, they'll just vanish, and we'll lose any chance of finding out who's behind it. Sam felt a surge of relief. Good to have you on board. We've got one lead, a symbol Lily saw at the house she was held in. It looked like a circle with an X through it. I don't know if it's a gang marking or something more subtle. That's interesting, Laura replied thoughtfully. It could be a kind of identifier, something used internally to mark locations or people. I'll look into it. In the meantime, let's meet in person to plan our next steps. I'll be there in a few hours. They ended the call, and Sam shared the news with Mia, who looked visibly relieved. Laura's good, she said with a nod. We're going to need her expertise. A few hours later, Laura arrived at the office. She was as sharp and composed as ever, with an air of quiet authority that immediately put Sam and Mia at ease. After introductions were made, Laura settled in and pulled out a notebook, ready to outline their approach. All right, she began, glancing at Sam and Mia. If we're going to take these people down, we need to know their structure, their patterns, and most importantly, their weak spots. This symbol Lily saw, it's our first lead. I'm going to tap into some old contacts and see if it matches any known trafficking operations. Meanwhile, we'll need to keep her safe and out of sight. Sam nodded. Agreed. They're already looking for her, and I don't doubt they'll try again. Laura turned to Lily, her gaze softening as she spoke. Lily, I know this is scary, but you've already been incredibly brave. Do you remember anything else about the place where you were kept? Any sounds, smells, or things you saw that could help us? Lily hesitated, her fingers twisting around the edge of her bear. Sometimes I smelled gasoline, she said slowly, and there was this noise at night, like metal hitting metal. I think it was coming from outside, but I could hear it through the walls. Laura jotted down notes, her expression thoughtful. Gasoline and metal clanging. That could mean they were near a rail yard or industrial area. It would make sense. Traffickers often use abandoned buildings near transportation hubs. Mia typed the new information into her laptop, pulling up maps of the area and highlighting potential locations that matched the description. There are a few old rail yards on the outskirts of town, she said, squinting at the screen. Some of them have been shut down for years, but they're close enough to town that they could be used without drawing too much attention. Sam leaned over, studying the map. Let's narrow it down to areas with large buildings nearby. If they're holding kids there, they'll need space. Laura tapped the notebook thoughtfully. Once we have a location, we'll need to move quickly and discreetly. If they suspect we're onto them, they'll disappear, and we'll lose any chance of finding those kids. They spent the next few hours analyzing the map, cross-referencing locations with police reports and any records of unusual activity. With each potential lead, Sam felt his resolve hardening. This was about more than just helping Lily. It was about stopping a network that preyed on the vulnerable and innocent. As they worked, Sam noticed Lily watching them with a mixture of fear and determination. Despite everything she'd been through, she was a fighter, and he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility toward her. He wanted her to know that she wasn't alone anymore, that there were people who cared about her and would protect her. Laura finished her notes and looked up, her gaze steely. I think we've got a starting point, she said, tapping a specific location on the map. There's an abandoned industrial site near the railway, not far from the estate where we had the close call. If they're operating nearby, this would be the perfect place to keep their operations hidden. Sam's mind raced as he studied the spot. The industrial site was vast, with multiple buildings and access to the railway line. It was the kind of place that could easily conceal people, and the kind of place few people would ever stumble upon. We should prepare for anything, Laura added, her tone serious. If we're right about this, we're going to be facing people who won't think twice about hurting us to protect their operation. Sam nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. He was used to danger, but this felt different, more personal, somehow. He glanced at Lily, who was watching him with wide, trusting eyes. She was counting on him, and he couldn't let her down. Let's do it, he said firmly. We'll check out the site tomorrow, but we'll need to be cautious. One wrong move, and we could blow everything. Laura and Mia exchanged determined nods, their expressions mirroring Sam's resolve. They were in this together now, bound by a shared mission to protect the innocent and bring justice to those who had been wronged. As they finalized their plans, Sam felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in a long time. This case was unlike anything he'd ever faced, but he knew he was ready for it. With allies like Laura and Mia and the bravery of a little girl named Lily, he was prepared to go as far as it took to bring down the people responsible. The following morning, the office was quiet, filled with a palpable tension. Sam, Mia, and Laura were already awake, preparing for their planned reconnaissance of the abandoned industrial site on the edge of town. As they reviewed their notes, Lily sat nearby, sipping a cup of warm cocoa Sam had made for her. She looked calm, but Sam could see the flickers of anxiety in her eyes, a reminder of the trauma she carried. Laura noticed it too and walked over, crouching down to meet Lily's gaze. "Lily, I know this is hard," she said softly, "but you've been so brave. Every little thing you remember helps us get closer to finding those responsible. If there's anything else you remember about the place, it could really help us." Lily looked at Laura, her gaze lingering for a moment before she nodded. "There is something," she said hesitantly, her fingers twisted around the handle of her cup. "In the room, the door had a symbol on it. Not just the X, there was something else. It was like a tree." Sam's brows furrowed. "A tree?" Lily nodded, her face scrunched up in concentration. "Yes. It was carved into the wood, like someone had scratched it on with something sharp. It wasn't big, but I remember it was right near the top corner. I used to look at it when I was scared." Laura's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. A tree symbol could be important. Sometimes these networks use unique markers to designate different locations or groups. Mia quickly began searching online databases, cross-referencing the tree symbol with known trafficking rings and criminal organizations. Sam watched her, his mind racing. The symbol could be the key they needed to link the operation back to a larger network, but they'd need more proof. As they gathered their gear and prepared to head to the industrial site, Sam made a mental note to keep an eye out for the symbol. He didn't want to put too much pressure on Lily, but the details she had remembered might just be the breakthrough they needed. The industrial site was even more desolate than Sam had imagined. The cracked asphalt of the parking lot was overgrown with weeds, and the surrounding buildings loomed like silent giants, their windows dark and shattered. The faint smell of rust and gasoline hung in the air, a reminder of the site's former life. "All right," Sam said, glancing at Mia and Laura. "We stick together, stay quiet, and look for anything that connects this place to the description Lily gave us. If we see any sign of recent activity, we pull back and regroup." They moved cautiously through the site, their footsteps echoing against the empty walls. Sam felt the weight of each step, every sound amplified in the eerie silence. As they entered the first building, a vast open space filled with abandoned machinery, Mia spotted something unusual. "Look over there," she whispered, pointing to a small pile of discarded food wrappers and water bottles. "That's recent." Sam's gaze hardened. Someone had been here, and possibly very recently. They continued exploring, moving carefully through the dark hallways and into smaller rooms that lined the building. Sam kept his eyes peeled for the tree symbol Lily had mentioned, checking every door they passed. He was about to give up when he saw it. Faint, nearly invisible, but unmistakable. A small tree scratched into the top corner of a door frame. "Here," he whispered, gesturing for Laura and Mia to join him. "This is it." The door led into a small windowless room, dark and cold. Sam's heart tightened as he stepped inside, imagining Lily and others like her locked in spaces like this, their days filled with fear and isolation. He searched the room for any sign of recent use, but it was empty, save for a few scattered pieces of trash and a single chair bolted to the floor. "This looks like the kind of room they'd use," Laura said quietly, running her fingers over the scratched tree symbol. "It's subtle but deliberate. This might be part of their system, marking rooms for specific purposes." Mia took photos of the symbol and the room, documenting everything carefully. They couldn't afford to leave anything to chance. Each piece of evidence, no matter how small, could help build a case strong enough to dismantle the operation. As they moved back into the hallway, Sam noticed a faint noise coming from the far end of the building. He motioned for Laura and Mia to follow him, their steps light and cautious. The sound grew louder as they approached, a rhythmic, metallic clanging, like machinery in use. They reached a doorway that opened into a large storage area. Sam peered around the corner and felt a chill run down his spine. Inside, several men were working, sorting through crates and loading items onto a truck. They wore plain clothes, but their movements were organized, methodical. This wasn't a group of random squatters. These were people with a purpose. "We need to get out of here," Laura whispered, her face tense. "If they see us, it's over." Sam nodded, his heart pounding. They'd found the operation, or at least part of it, but they couldn't risk being spotted. He signaled for Mia and Laura to retreat, and they made their way back toward the entrance as quietly as possible. Just as they reached the exit, a loud crash echoed from behind them. One of the workers must have knocked something over, but the sudden noise drew attention. A shout rang out, followed by hurried footsteps. "Go, go!" Sam whispered urgently, ushering Mia and Laura out the door and into the open lot. They sprinted toward their car, ducking behind an old truck as they heard footsteps approaching from behind. They crouched in silence, hidden in the shadows as the footsteps drew nearer. Sam's pulse raced, and he held his breath, praying they wouldn't be discovered. After a tense moment, the footsteps faded, and Sam exhaled slowly. They waited a few more seconds before creeping back to their car, moving as quietly as possible. As they drove away from the site, Sam's mind was already racing with next steps. They had proof now, albeit circumstantial, that the industrial site was being used for some sort of operation connected to trafficking. The tree symbol, the locked room, the organized workers, it all pointed to something much bigger than they had initially suspected. Back at the office, they gathered around, reviewing the evidence and piecing together a plan. "This is enough to get law enforcement involved," Laura said, her eyes serious. "With the tree symbol and the recent activity at the site, we could push for a warrant. If we're careful, we might be able to take down the whole operation." Sam nodded, his mind already moving ahead to what that would entail. They'd need support, resources, and a coordinated effort to ensure that the entire network was brought down. As they wrapped up their meeting, Sam glanced at Lily, who had been listening quietly from the corner of the room. He could see the fear and hope in her eyes, and he felt a surge of determination. They were close, closer than ever, and he wasn't going to let her down. He placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring smile. "We're going to end this, Lily, I promise." In her eyes, he saw a spark of trust, a fragile but growing belief that maybe, just maybe, she was finally safe. The atmosphere in Sam's office was charged with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. They had gathered all the evidence they could from the industrial site, and now it was time to bring in reinforcements. Sam knew this wasn't a mission he, Laura, and Mia could handle alone. They needed law enforcement to move forward, and after sharing what they had uncovered, the local police were on board. Detective Harris, Sam's former colleague, stood by the window, his face set in a determined expression. He was an experienced officer, seasoned by years on the force, and he understood the gravity of the situation. The police had reviewed the details, the tree symbol, the locked room, the organized presence of workers, and they'd finally secured a warrant to raid the site. Harris turned to Sam. "This isn't going to be easy. If they're trafficking kids, they'll have people posted everywhere, probably armed. They're not just going to let us walk in and take them down." Sam nodded, his gaze flicking to Lily, who sat quietly nearby, listening with wide eyes. "I know, but we're ready. We can't wait any longer. Lily needs closure, and those kids need a way out." Laura stepped forward, holding a map of the industrial site. She spread it out on the table, gesturing to the main building they'd investigated. "We'll split into 2 teams. Team A will secure the main building, where we suspect they're holding the kids. Team B will cover the perimeter to cut off any escape routes. Once we're in, we'll need to move fast, sweep every room, and get those kids to safety." Harris and the other officers nodded, their faces grim. They'd conducted raids before, but this was different. There was an added weight knowing that children's lives were at stake. Sam looked at Lily, his expression softening. "Lily, I know this is a lot to ask, but I need your help. Do you remember anything else about the building? Anything that might help us find the kids faster?" Lily hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. She fidgeted with the fabric of her shirt, clearly struggling with the weight of her memories. But then she looked up, meeting Sam's eyes with a steady resolve. "There was a hallway," she said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was long, and at the end of it, there was a big metal door. They didn't let us go near it, but I think the other kids were behind that door." Sam nodded, grateful for her courage. "Thank you, Lily. You've helped us more than you know." As the final preparations were made, Mia took Lily aside, offering her a comforting smile. "You're really brave. You know that?" she said softly, placing a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "Sam and Laura are going to make sure those people never hurt anyone again." Lily nodded, a hint of a smile breaking through her nervous expression. Despite the fear and uncertainty, she trusted Sam and the team. She knew they were her protectors now, and she clung to that belief, drawing strength from it. With the plan set, they piled into a convoy of police vehicles, their headlights slicing through the early morning darkness. Sam sat in the lead car with Harris, his mind sharp and focused. He couldn't shake the image of Lily's haunted eyes as she described the metal door. Whatever lay behind it, he knew it represented everything she had been trying to escape. As they approached the industrial site, the tension in the car grew palpable. Sam gripped his radio tightly, preparing himself for what lay ahead. The raid would have to be swift and efficient, with no room for error. The convoy came to a silent stop a short distance from the main building, and the officers disembarked, their movements swift and practiced. Harris gestured for silence, and the team split up, each member moving into position. Sam, Laura, and Harris led Team A toward the main building, their flashlights illuminating the shadowed walls. The air was thick with anticipation as they approached the entrance, weapons drawn. Sam's heart pounded in his chest, but he pushed his fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. Laura gave the signal, and with a swift, calculated movement, they breached the door, spilling into the building's dark interior. The first room was empty, but the faint hum of voices echoed from down the hall. As they moved deeper into the building, Sam spotted the hallway Lily had described. At the far end, the metal door loomed, a silent testament to the horrors hidden within. He exchanged a look with Laura, who nodded, her expression fierce and determined. Harris motioned for two officers to cover their backs as they advanced toward the door. The voices grew louder, and Sam could make out faint cries, small, terrified voices that broke his heart. They reached the metal door, and Laura pulled a set of bolt cutters from her bag, quickly snapping the lock. The door swung open, revealing a room filled with young faces, their eyes wide with fear and desperation. Some of the children flinched as the officers entered, but Sam quickly held up his hands in a calming gesture. "It's okay," he said gently, his voice soft and reassuring. "We're here to help you. You're safe now." A few of the children stepped forward hesitantly, their expressions a mixture of confusion and relief. One of the older kids, a boy around 12, approached Sam, his gaze fierce despite his obvious fear. "Are you really here to save us?" the boy asked, his voice trembling. Sam knelt down to his level, meeting his gaze with a steady determination. "Yes, we're getting you all out of here. No one will ever hurt you again." As the officers began guiding the children out of the room, a sudden noise echoed from behind them, a loud bang, followed by hurried footsteps. Sam's pulse spiked as he turned, catching sight of several men advancing down the hallway, their faces twisted in anger. "Move! Get the kids out!" Sam shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He and Harris moved to block the doorway, standing their ground as the men approached. Laura took charge of the children, leading them quickly but carefully toward the exit. Mia was waiting outside with other officers, ready to transport the children to safety. Meanwhile, Sam and Harris held their positions, determined to keep the men from reaching the kids. The confrontation was brief but intense. Sam and Harris fought back with everything they had, their experience and training keeping them one step ahead of their opponents. Within minutes, the men were subdued, restrained by the officers who had moved in to assist. As the dust settled, Sam felt a surge of relief. The children were safe, and the men responsible for their suffering were in custody. He took a deep breath, the weight of the mission finally lifting from his shoulders. Outside, Lily was waiting, her eyes scanning the crowd anxiously. When she spotted Sam emerging from the building, a huge smile broke across her face, and she ran toward him, wrapping her arms around him in a fierce hug. "You did it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and gratitude. "You really did it." Sam hugged her back, his heart swelling with pride. "We did it, Lily. You were the one who led us here. Your courage made this possible." As they stood together, surrounded by the relieved faces of the rescued children and the officers who had risked everything to save them, Sam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was more than just a case. It was a victory over the darkness that had haunted Lily and so many others. For the first time since she had appeared in his life, Sam saw hope in Lily's eyes, a spark of healing and the promise of a new beginning. The adrenaline still coursed through Sam's veins as he emerged from the building, the sounds of chaos beginning to fade behind him. The fresh air outside felt almost surreal after the dark confines of the industrial site. He took a moment to breathe deeply, grounding himself before turning back to the crowd of children now gathering around the police vehicles. Lily was at the center of it all, her eyes shining with relief and joy as she hugged the other children, tears of happiness streaming down their faces. Sam watched as the officers helped the kids into the waiting cars, ensuring they were safe and secure. This was a victory worth celebrating, but his heart was still heavy, knowing that not every child had made it out. As the last of the children were loaded into the police vehicles, Sam felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Laura, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "We did it, Sam. We actually did it," she said, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "Yeah," he replied, a smile breaking through his earlier tension. "But we still have work to do." Just then a cry broke through the moment of triumph, piercing the air with a sharp edge of panic. "No! Wait!" It was Lily, her voice filled with distress as she broke away from the group and ran back toward the building. "Lily!" Sam shouted, instantly on high alert. He sprinted after her, his heart racing as he crossed the gravel parking lot, the sound of her voice echoing in his mind. He couldn't lose her again, not after everything they had just accomplished. Lily had stopped in front of the entrance to the main building, her small frame trembling with emotion. "My friend! She's still inside. We have to help her." "Lily, wait," Sam urged as he reached her, his voice steady but firm. "We just got you out of there. We need to be careful." But Lily shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She was in a room next to mine. I heard her. We can't leave her." The determination in her voice cut through the fear, igniting a fierce resolve within Sam. He looked at Laura and Harris, who were both approaching quickly, their expressions shifting from relief to concern. "We can't leave anyone behind," Sam said, the urgency clear in his voice. "If there's a chance she's still there, we need to go back." Harris nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "All right, but we go in with backup. We'll secure the area first." The officers quickly organized, forming a plan to safely re-enter the building. They moved in tandem, weapons drawn, ready for any threat that might emerge from the shadows. Sam's heart pounded as they crossed the threshold once more, the oppressive darkness swallowing them whole. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. They made their way through the dim hallways, the air heavy with dust and the remnants of fear. Sam led the way, his senses heightened, searching for any sign of life. The distant echo of their footsteps mingled with the haunting memories of the children who had suffered in these very rooms. As they approached the door that led to the room next to where Lily had been held, Sam motioned for the team to halt. He listened carefully, straining to hear anything from within. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his breath shallow. A faint noise drifted through the door, soft, muffled cries. "It's her," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. "I know it is. Please, we have to help her." Sam nodded, heart racing. "We're going to get her out," he promised, turning to the officers. "On 3. "Ready?" Laura said, her voice steady. 2. Sam felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. 1. They burst through the door, weapons drawn, ready to confront whatever lay beyond. The room was small and dark, and for a moment they found it empty. But then, in the far corner, Sam spotted a girl huddled on the floor, her eyes wide with fear. She couldn't have been more than 10, her clothes torn and dirty. "Get back!" one of the officers shouted, ready to react, but Sam stepped forward, lowering his weapon. "It's okay. We're here to help you," he called gently, taking a cautious step closer. "Can you tell me your name?" The girl blinked, confusion clouding her eyes. I don't know, she stammered, her voice shaky. They didn't let me out. We're not going to hurt you, Sam reassured her, holding out a hand. My name is Sam, and this is Lily. He gestured behind him, and Lily stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. I'm here to help you. You're safe now, Lily exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. The girl looked up, her expression softening slightly at the sight of Lily. You're alive? She whispered, disbelief flooding her features. Yes, we're getting you out of here, Lily insisted, her determination igniting hope in the other girl's eyes. As they approached, Sam noticed the shackles on the girl's wrists. She had been chained to the wall. His heart sank at the sight, anger boiling within him. Hold on, we'll get you out of here, he said as he quickly assessed the situation. Laura, help me with this, he called, motioning for her to join him as he moved closer to the girl. Together they carefully unfastened the chains, freeing her from her torment. As the shackles fell away, the girl's relief was palpable. She blinked back tears, her small hands trembling as she rubbed her wrists. Thank you so much, she breathed, her voice barely audible. Come on, Sam urged gently, taking her hand and leading her toward the door. We have to move quickly. There are still some bad people in this building. Lily walked beside them, her presence a comforting anchor for the scared girl. You're going to be okay, she said softly, her empathy shining through the fear. We're going to get out of here together. With every step they took, Sam felt a weight lifting. They had saved one more child, and it felt like a small victory in a world filled with darkness. They moved quickly through the hallways, retracing their steps, but as they neared the exit, a loud crash echoed behind them. Go! Sam shouted, pushing the girls ahead. He could hear footsteps rapidly approaching, voices shouting commands. They burst through the door and into the open air just as several men emerged from the shadows, their expressions furious. Stop! One of them yelled, lunging toward them. Get in the car! Sam shouted to the girls as he turned to face the incoming threat. He braced himself, ready to defend them. But before the men could reach them, a chorus of shouts filled the air as officers from Team B arrived, weapons drawn. Drop it! Drop your weapons! Harris commanded, stepping forward with authority. The men hesitated, glancing between Sam and the officers. In that critical moment, the tide turned. The officers moved in, their training kicking in, and within moments, they had apprehended the assailants, securing them in handcuffs. Get the kids to safety, Sam ordered, not taking his eyes off the men until they were completely subdued. Once the threat was neutralized, Sam turned to see Lily and the other girl standing by the police vehicles, their expressions a mix of fear and hope. Are you okay? He asked, rushing over to them. Lily nodded, tears still glistening in her eyes. We did it, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. We really did it. The other girl, still clutching Lily's hand, looked up at Sam with wide eyes. Are we safe now? Yes, he assured her, kneeling to meet her gaze. You're safe now. We're going to take care of you. As the police began gathering the rescued children and securing the area, Sam felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. They had accomplished what they set out to do, and they had given these children a second chance at life. In that moment, he realized that the battle wasn't just about rescuing kids. It was about restoring hope and giving them the opportunity to reclaim their lives. They were all survivors now, bound together by their shared experiences and the strength they had discovered within themselves. Sam glanced at Lily, who was smiling through her tears, a radiant light shining in her eyes. He knew that this was just the beginning of her healing journey, and he was committed to standing by her side every step of the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the scene, Sam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world shift ever so slightly. They had won this battle, and he was determined to continue fighting until every last child was free. The sun had set, casting a soft twilight glow over Pineville as the rescued children were taken to safety. They were escorted to a nearby community center where officers had set up a temporary shelter ready to provide comfort and care. Sam, still buzzing with adrenaline, watched as the kids were gently ushered inside, their expressions a mixture of exhaustion and tentative relief. Lily stood by his side, her small hand clasped tightly in his. She was visibly shaken but radiated a newfound strength. Sam turned to her, kneeling down so they were eye to eye. "You did amazing today," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You helped save your friend and so many others." She smiled softly, though her eyes were still brimming with unshed tears. "I just wanted everyone to be okay," she replied, her voice wavering. "I didn't want anyone to be left behind." Sam felt a wave of pride swell within him. "You did that, Lily. Because of you, those kids will have a chance at a new life." As they made their way to the community center, Sam couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. The emotional weight of the rescue had left a mark on him, but it was also a reminder of why he had taken on this mission in the first place. He was determined to help Lily heal and find her place in a world that had been so cruel. Once inside, the atmosphere was buzzing with activity. Officers were busy tending to the children, providing blankets, food, and reassurance. Sam felt a sense of relief knowing they were safe, but a lingering worry gnawed at him. What about the larger network that had orchestrated this? As if sensing his thoughts, Laura approached, her expression serious. "We need to talk," she said, gesturing for Sam to follow her to a quieter corner of the room. They stepped away from the noise, the chatter of children and the bustle of officers fading into the background. "What's on your mind?" Sam asked. "After the raid, I started looking into the tree symbol we found at the site," Laura said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's linked to a larger trafficking ring that's been operating in this region for years. They have connections not just here, but across state lines." Sam's stomach sank. "So it's bigger than we thought." "Much bigger," Laura confirmed. "And they're likely to retaliate now that they have lost a significant portion of their operation. We need to keep the kids safe, but we also need to find a way to gather more intel without putting them in danger." "Do you think they'll come after Lily?" Sam asked, concern lacing his voice. "It's possible," Laura replied, her expression grave. "That's why we need to act quickly. We'll have increased patrols around here, and I recommend finding a safe place for her until we can get a handle on this." Just then, Harris approached them, his face etched with determination. "We need to take immediate action. I'm calling in federal support. They'll have resources to help us crack this ring wide open and protect the kids, especially Lily." Sam nodded, feeling a sense of urgency. "We can't let them get away with this. We need to put pressure on them and dismantle this network before they can regroup." As they strategized, Lily wandered nearby, looking around the community center. Sam's heart ached for her. She had already endured so much, and now her world was turned upside down once again. He approached her, kneeling down to her level. "Lily, I know you've been through a lot today," he said softly. "I want you to know that you're safe here. We're going to take care of you." She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and hope. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Well," Sam replied, choosing his words carefully, "we're going to make sure everyone who hurt you and your friends is caught. You're going to have a chance to heal and start fresh. You're not alone anymore." Lily's eyes brightened a bit, and she nodded, her small fingers tightening around her bear. "Can I still see my friends?" "Of course," Sam assured her. "They'll be safe here too. We'll make sure you can see each other as often as possible." As the night wore on, the community center transformed into a haven for the rescued children. Officers worked tirelessly, providing food, blankets, and comfort. Volunteers from the local community arrived, eager to help and offer support. The spirit of resilience and compassion was palpable, and Sam felt a flicker of hope in his heart. Eventually, a local social worker arrived, introducing herself and explaining how she would be working with the children to ensure their needs were met. Sam watched as she interacted with Lily, her approach gentle and kind. It was a relief to know that there were professionals ready to help the children through the emotional aftermath of their ordeal. "Sam," Laura called, breaking his reverie, "we need to finalize our plan for the next steps. Can you come over?" He nodded, giving Lily a reassuring smile before stepping away. The weight of the moment hung heavy on his shoulders, but he knew they were making progress. As they gathered around the table with the other officers, Sam felt the urgency of their mission intensify. "First, we need to get the word out about the trafficking ring," Harris said, looking around the table. "We'll be working with federal agents, but We need all hands on deck to keep track of any potential leads. Our primary focus is ensuring the safety of the children we've rescued. And we need to protect Lily," Laura added. "She's a key witness, and we can't risk her safety. We'll need to arrange for a secure location until this is sorted out." As they discussed strategies and resources, Sam's mind drifted back to Lily. She was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, there was light to be found. He was committed to ensuring that she and the other children would have the chance to heal and thrive. After the meeting, Sam returned to where Lily was sitting, surrounded by other children and volunteers. The social worker was talking to them, engaging them in a comforting discussion about what they could expect moving forward. Sam felt a sense of warmth watching the interactions, knowing that these kids were beginning to find some semblance of safety. "Hey, how are you doing?" he asked Lily, kneeling down beside her. She looked up, a hint of a smile on her face. "I'm okay. They're nice here." "That's great to hear," Sam said, feeling a surge of relief. "I'm so proud of you. You were so brave today." "I just want to help everyone," she said earnestly. "Can we help the other kids too?" "Yes, absolutely," Sam replied, his heart swelling with admiration for her spirit. "You're already helping by being here. You're showing them that it's okay to be brave and that they're safe now." As they talked, Sam felt a sense of purpose wash over him. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy for Lily or any of the children, but they were taking the first steps toward healing. With every ounce of his being, he was committed to helping them navigate that journey, no matter what it took. As the evening came to a close, Sam made a silent promise to Lily and the other kids. He would ensure they would not only survive, but thrive. Together they would reclaim their lives, leaving behind the shadows of the past and embracing a future filled with hope. A few weeks had passed since the rescue, and the memory of that night still lingered in Pineville. The town had come together in support of the children who had been saved, offering donations, hosting community events, and volunteering to help with their recovery. The resilience and kindness of the community had lifted Sam's spirits, making him hopeful about the future of each child, especially Lily. Since the rescue, Sam had become Lily's official guardian, a decision that had felt both natural and right. He had consulted with social services, prepared his home, and navigated the formalities, all with Lily's agreement. The day she had been told about his decision to adopt her, she'd hugged him tightly, unable to hold back her tears of joy. Now, Lily had a safe, warm place to call home, and it was clear to everyone around them that Sam and Lily were growing into a family in every sense of the word. On a chilly evening, Sam had arranged a small gathering at his home to celebrate Lily's new life. Friends, officers, and neighbors filled his cozy living room, their laughter and warm presence wrapping the house in a sense of peace and unity. For Lily, it was a world away from the darkness she had known, and she thrived in the company of these kind faces. As everyone gathered in the kitchen to enjoy some homemade apple pie, Sam watched Lily with a smile. She was laughing and talking with some of the other children who had been at the shelter, her eyes bright and her posture relaxed in a way he hadn't seen before. Laura, who had been standing beside Sam, nudged him gently. "You've done an amazing thing, Sam. Look at her. She's happy. She's safe." Sam nodded, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. "It was worth every minute, every sleepless night. I can't believe how far she's come." Mia, who was helping to serve drinks, chimed in with a grin. "Well, you're officially the best dad on the block, Sam. I think she's found her place with you." As the evening continued, Sam felt the weight of the past few weeks finally lifting. Surrounded by friends and laughter, he realized just how deeply Lily had impacted him. She had come into his life in a moment of desperation. Yet, she had brought with her a strength that had inspired everyone around her. As the gathering began to wind down, Sam made his way over to Lily, who was helping one of the younger children with a puzzle on the coffee table. He crouched beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice warm. Lily looked up, her eyes shining with happiness. "I feel like I belong here," she said softly, glancing around the room. "It's nice, having people who care." Sam smiled, a sense of contentment settling over him. "You'll always belong here, Lily. This is your home now." As the guests said their goodbyes and the evening came to a close, Sam and Lily stood on the front porch, watching the stars. The town lay quiet and peaceful beneath the night sky, and for the first time, Sam felt like his life had come full circle. He had found a family in Lily, and she had found safety, love, and the chance to start anew. Sam, Lily's voice was soft, thoughtful. Yes, thank you for everything, she whispered, her gaze fixed on the stars above. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. No, thank you, Lily. You've given me more than you will ever know. They stood there together, sharing a quiet moment of peace. The shadows of their pasts were behind them, and a new chapter awaited, a chapter filled with hope, healing, and the unwavering bond of family. For Lily and Sam, this was just the beginning, and together they would face whatever lay ahead, knowing that they had found their way home.